Welcome to Legislative Watch, where public policy is openly discussed and elected officials can report their activities directly to the people, unfiltered and unbridled. I'm your host, Elizabeth Allen Hodge, and in the studio today I have two senators, Senator Pearce from District 9, who's in his 5th term, and Senator Chuck Winder from District 14 in his 2nd term. Well, gentlemen, you both had a very, very busy week.
It has been.
And the legislature's trying to wind down, hopefully be out of here by next week.
Yes, we're shooting for Tuesday or Wednesday next week.
All right. Senator Winder, I'd like to talk with you for a moment about Senate Bill 1387, which has certainly drawn a lot of attention.
Yes, it has drawn a lot of attention. It was actually a bill that was brought to me by Idaho Right to Life. A group of women came to me at the beginning of the session and wanted to present this bill, and obviously the purpose of it was to try and respect life and reduce the number of abortions that occur. And the way it would do that was through informed consent. And one of the things people don't realize, Idaho already has an ultrasound law, but it only requires the physician, if they have ultrasound equipment, to actually take the ultrasound and offer it to the woman. This bill would have taken one more step and required the instrumentation to be available and the ultrasound to be taken prior to any termination.
You know, there's a lot of misinformation going on about this. For one thing, there are no probes, there's nothing that is dangerous, and yet it seems like there's a lot of discussion about concern for the woman's health.
Right, and you know, and I think that around the country there have been other bills that have been brought forward that did require at certain stages that a transvaginal ultrasound be given. I was concerned about that as a requirement, and so I actually removed that from this bill.
Right.
So it really required the ultrasound to be done, but it's specifically in the bill it says the physician and the woman would determine the method to be used.
Okay, so the woman certainly has a choice, and in terms of danger to her or the baby?
There really isn't any. One of the things we heard during committee testimony was that ultrasounds at the time of termination is pretty much standard medical practice. Now, some physicians have told me that's not the case, but at least people did testify that they thought that was the case, that in order to identify the age and development of the child, to determine the type of abortion that would take place legally and medically, that they did need to make determination of the gestational period and growth of the infant.
Well, I happened to be present at 2 ultrasounds of 2 of my grandchildren, and it was a very simple procedure,
right.
And it was a wonderful procedure to see that life.
That is, I mean, you know, you think about back to 1973 in Roe versus Wade when they didn't have this technology, and I think, you know, one of the things that potentially happens is women being coerced, you know, not having a full awareness of the developmental stages of the child that's developing, and it's kind of that old theory that maybe this was just a glob of cells until some point
right.
Later on in the pregnancy. And I think as with the technology we have today, we know that that's not the case, and we see early development stages, and it's important, I think, because of the trauma that it can cause in a woman, that she understands that, the consequences, and also knows that she has the ability to bring the child to full term, and that there are adoptions. Families are out there that are waiting, anxious to have children. So, you know, that's really the message we were trying to get out. The opposition obviously turned that message around and said things that we didn't say. And
what are the other things that you think were misleading about what the opposition was saying in terms of what the bill actually does?
Well, I think I tried to cover that a little bit in my earlier comments, but you know, the rhetoric that was used was that this was state rape of a woman, that which we didn't require the transvaginal, but there was a lot of misinformation out there. I think that, you know, in the closing debate that kind of sparked the furor that went national, and People took totally out of context what was said, and all I was trying to say is if you have a woman that is considering a termination that's raped, that it would be beneficial to her to know the father. If she were in a consensual marriage, for instance, or a consensual relationship, she may be pregnant prior to it, just didn't know it yet, and that she should, and the doctor should counsel her about having paternity tests before deciding on the termination. The bill doesn't require any kind of, procedures. It didn't really have anything to do with that, and that's probably one of the things I should have left out of my debate. But people
well,
took
that is a thought, though. I mean,
oh, I agree. It's part of the whole idea of why have this informed consent.
Right.
And it's part of, I think, what a woman should be counseled, particularly a woman that's in a consensual relationship that may not want to terminate a child if they knew it was, prior to the event of the rape. And rape's a horrible crime. There's no doubt about that.
It is.
But
It's a violent crime. Well, one of the things that I was surprised at, just on my way over to the program today, I heard Representative Burgoyne being interviewed on radio, and I was really surprised to hear him say the host that was interviewing him was talking a bit about, I don't know if it was this bill because I tuned in late, but they were talking about a right to life, and the representative said, well, women have rights, and the host said, well, some people would say that the unborn child has rights as well. And Representative Burgoyne said, we've got to face it, we are a nation that kills. And then he went on to talk about how he supported the war in Iraq, and he was also talking about, that he supports the, killing terrorists. And he was asked if he supported capital punishment, and he said yes. And it was dropped. And my thoughts were, how can we compare an innocent unborn child who has not aggressed against anyone to a terrorist or a murderer?
Yeah, that was one of the interesting things is the ACLU usually comes and testifies against any of these types of bills, and yet I noticed when they were considering the chemical termination of Paul Ezra Rhodes at the state penitentiary, they were out there complaining about the torture, this being
cruel and unusual
punishment, and yet when we were doing the fetal pain bill, they were testifying against it. So it's a really interesting standard. It's a tremendously emotional debate that goes on.
Oh, sure.
Right now at least, I don't know what the House is going to do with it. They may not do anything with it this session. Some people say it should be amended, but it's a debate that needed to be had, and it needs to go on because when you need to protect the rights of the unborn, and even the Declaration of Independence says the right to life.
Right to life is
That's
the very
the
first one.
And one that they have. And,
absolutely.
So I think, to me, even those people that wanted to add the idea of transgender or gender preference to the Human Rights Act in Idaho, that the ultimate human right should be the preservation of life of whatever that age of that unborn is, or the old or the elderly.
Well, and when they talk about the woman's right to choose, that's true, but there's two lives involved. It's not just one, and the second one doesn't have a
Yeah, and I think that's a good point you make, too, because I think that was part of the misinformation and misunderstanding about the bill was that this was going to require that they couldn't get an abortion, or that they, there was stuff said that if they were rape or incest, they couldn't get an abortion now. Well, we didn't change the abortion law. We didn't change Roe versus Wade. Idaho's still a state that you can go get a legally induced abortion for non-emergency medical reasons at different stages of development.
I can remember studying this issue when I carried some pro-life legislation back in 1990, and there was one doctor who said that he considered full-term pregnancy to be more dangerous than an abortion, so he always put life of the mother, which I thought was interesting. So, people find loopholes or whatever you want to call it. But at that time we also had a film called A Silent Scream, and I don't know if they showed that. You mentioned the pain, and you mentioned the fact that they were worried about lethal injection and,
right.
and the torture, and yet they've proven that babies feel in the, that their senses,
right.
sense of feeling
right.
is alive and well in
right.
the womb.
And that's been a difficult issue. There's been tremendous outcry from all over the country, and I've seen phone calls and messages left insulting my wife, who doesn't have anything to do with the legislative process. I guess I would just, I'm really disappointed that we can't have a debate in this country and have it be civil at least.
A civil debate, exactly.
And if we lose that, I think we lose a lot in our form of government.
I agree. Well, I want to commend you for standing. I make no apologies for being pro-life, and I appreciate your stand on that.
Thank you very much.
So, Senator Pearce, you've had a busy week as well.
I have.
Yours has been the third case of question relative to ethics in the last year, I think. I believe last year was Representative Hart, and then this year Senator McGee, and then you. And of course you were completely, fully exonerated by the entire committee, but not before you were put through a lot of stuff. And it was interesting. I sat through every day of it, and it was 3 days. That could not have been easy for you and your family. Probably a good week of media that was not necessarily supportive. The first day after the Attorney General spoke, someone from his office spoke and explained the definition of conflict of interest, I think it would have been clear to a layman that you had no conflict of interest, and I believe Senator Hammond said that, and yet it kept going on and on. Tell us a little bit about your experience.
Thank you, Elizabeth. You know that the experience has been an interesting experience because this is a citizen legislature, and we all have businesses, we have various interests, and many of the things that we do are going to be addressed in legislation. And as a result of that, there is going to be appearances of, looks like we have an interest or a special interest in one area or the other. When the charge was initially brought, they really kind of said that there were 22 charges against me of conflict of interest. And that was kind of embarrassing in the standpoint that it made me look like I was really bad. Mm-hmm. And then you can look back and I realize in House Bill 379, that was an oil and gas bill. It's how the state collects it's how they collect their severance tax on oil and gas.
I hate to interrupt you, but we've got a break, and when we come back, we'll take up from there. We'll be right back.